You read that right. A hacking group was within the United States infrastructure for about 5 years. They were hiding, they were secretive, and they were waiting. Volt Typhoon, a Chinese nation-state sponsored hacking group as they're known, burrowed their way into networks, primarily in communications, energy, transportation systems, and water and waste systems. Pretty much anywhere that you wouldn't want someone to be in, that's where they were. CISA released a joint advisory with Five Eyes and a couple of other nations a couple of days ago talking about this discovery that they've been tracking for the last few months, and now they're finally releasing all of this information to the public. And it is a big one. They're saying this is not your typical espionage or information gathering actions. They're not just trying to steal stuff. But I quote that the US authoring agencies assess with high confidence that Volt Typhoon actors are pre-positioning themselves on IT networks to enable lateral movement to OT assets, which are operational technology, to disrupt functions. The US authoring agencies are concerned about the potential for these actors to use their network access for disruptive effects in the event of potential geopolitical tensions and or military conflicts. They are getting ready for global conflict. Believing Computer has released a really great summary of the situation in this article. It says the Chinese Volt Typhoon cyber espionage group infiltrated a critical infrastructure network in the United States and remained undetected for at least 5 years before being discovered, according to a joint advisory from CISA, the NSA, the FBI, and partner Five Eyes agencies. Volt Typhoon hackers are known for extensively using living off the land techniques as part of their attacks on critical infrastructure organizations. They're also using stolen accounts and leverage strong operational security, which enables them to avoid detection and maintain long-term persistence on compromised systems. In fact, the US authoring agencies have recently observed indications of Volt Typhoon actors maintaining access and footholds within some victim IT environments for at least 5 years, the agency said. Volt Typhoon actors conduct extensive pre-exploitation reconnaissance to learn about the target organization and its environment, tailor their tactics, techniques, and procedures to the victim's environment, and dedicate ongoing resources to maintain persistence and understanding the target environment over time, even after initial compromise. They're using very advanced techniques. They're really trying to understand their targets, they're breaking in, and then they're assessing the situation. They're really adapting and getting to know who they are infiltrating, who they are compromising, to then be able to further compromise and further burrow in within those networks. The Chinese threat group has successfully breached the networks of multiple critical infrastructure organizations across the United States while mainly targeting communications, energy, transportation, and water and wastewater sectors. Then we have an attack flow diagram here. I think the thing that I found really interesting about their techniques is one, the fact that they're using unknown Fortinet exploits. They're using zero-day vulnerabilities and known exploits out there. But the really, really interesting thing is that they're using small office or home office devices to be able to then proxy from their location into these networks, so that they're able to proxy their traffic, which means they can move their traffic around so it doesn't look like it's actually coming from the original IP that it first goes out from. So they're moving their traffic from different locations just to hide their position. And I think it's really clever the way that they're doing that. I think it's also really clever how they are moving and adapting to their environment and really trying to understand what is going on within their environment, trying to stay as stealthy as possible and not really trigger any alarm. Its targets and tactics also diverge from typical cyber espionage activities, leading authorities to conclude with high confidence that the group aims to position itself within networks that provide them with access to operational technology assets, with the end goal of disrupting critical infrastructure. US authorities are also apprehensive of Volt Typhoon exploiting this access to critical networks to cause disruptive effects, particularly amidst potential military conflicts or geopolitical tensions. We know that things between the US and China are a little bit fray at the moment. They've been that way for a long time, and they are very much two big superpowers, especially in the cyber world, that we don't really want going up against each other. Volt Typhoon actors are seeking to pre-position themselves using living off the land techniques on IT networks for disruptive or destructive cyber activity against US critical infrastructure in the event of a major crisis or conflict with the United States, CISA warned. This is something we have been addressing for a long time, said Rob Joyce, NSA's Director of Cybersecurity and Deputy National Manager for the NSS. We've gotten better at all aspects of this, from understanding Volt Typhoon's scope to identifying the compromises likely to impact critical infrastructure systems, to hardening targets against these intrusions, to working together with partner agencies to combat PRC cyber actors. Some of the mitigation advice for network defenders. Today's advisory is also accompanied with a technical guide with information on how to detect Volt Typhoon's techniques and if they're used to compromise their organization's network, as well as mitigation measures to secure them against attackers using living off the land techniques. The Chinese threat group, also tracked as Bronze Silhouette, has been targeting and breaching US critical infrastructure since at least mid-2021, according to a May 2023 report published by Microsoft. Throughout their attacks, they've also used a botnet of hundreds of small home office or SOHO equipment across the United States, dubbed KV Botnet, to hide their malicious activity and evade detection. The FBI disrupted KV Botnet in December of last year, 2023, and the hackers failed to rebuild the dismantled infrastructure after Lumen's Black Lotus Labs took down all remaining C2 and payload servers. The day the hit on KV Botnet was disclosed, CISA and the FBI also urged SOHO router manufacturers to ensure the devices are protected against Volt Typhoon attacks by eliminating web management interface flaws during development and using secure configuration defaults. Now, the Joint Advisory really expands a lot on what this article summarizes. So if you want to see that, I'll leave a link in the description. But basically, it summarizes the events of discovery and what this actually means. Then there will be a bunch of technical details of the attack paths that are typically used by Volt Typhoon within the critical infrastructure. And then finally, there are some really interesting observed TTPs that they use that is kind of labeled by the MITRE ATT&CK framework. It's a really, really interesting read, and it kind of highlights a little bit of the sophistication, not a little bit, it highlights a lot, the sophistication of these threat actors against the US infrastructure. Now, these guys are really highly sophisticated. They're not your average script kiddies. They're clearly not running Meterpreter and Metasploit to execute all their exploits. They're using living off the land techniques. They're gaining initial access using zero-day vulnerabilities and just being really operationally secure. They are entering an environment, staying low, staying put, finding credentials, leveraging those credentials to get deeper and burrow deeper into the network until they can get at least adjacent to OT infrastructure, OT assets. Because as the article and the advisory states, everything is pointing to disruption and destructive activities against those assets, which within a global conflict situation, that's kind of things you want to be hitting. You want to be able to cut off your enemy at the source of pretty much everything that they need. And that's a big deal. We already know that disruptive cyber attacks are possible. We saw this with Sandworm back in 2017 when they attacked Ukraine, and we see that on a continual basis during this war in Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine just throwing cyber weapons at each other, trying to disrupt and destroy the different assets that are critical to the actual physical war. So, and this is an important story whether we are in the US or any other country aligned to the US. If we're living on this planet, we kind of need to know that this stuff is going on in the background. This story is a reminder of the fragile nature of geopolitics at the moment, where we are sitting and that in a state of conflict, the gloves will come off and they will try to cut us off. In the same way that our nations will try to cut our enemies off, our enemies will be trying to do the same thing to us. But if you found this interesting, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments about all of this, and we will see you in the next one.